looking over now at 14th Street. It is shut down, no left turn off of Constitution Avenue. And Jim, as we pan around, we can also see that the Washington Monument has been locked down. Anyone who goes near the Washington Monument is immediately told to move. One of the amazing things that I noticed as we got to town around 10:15, 9:30 or so, was the fact that although they were evacuating, the town security procedures were moving as well. Let's take a look at what it looked like this morning. Again, they were faced with a dual problem here. Lock down federal buildings and at the same time evacuate the city. What I was told by some security personnel was they were very much afraid that in this point, when the buildings were emptying, there may have been someone in a vehicle on the street ready to ignite another terrorist incident. So as they tried to move people away, and you've got folk with all kinds of concerns, children in daycare who can't get to their parents, people who can't get to their cars, everyone scurrying, and traffic very suddenly by at least around 10:30 this morning just about stopping. But throughout it all, I noticed on the faces, obviously, of the people here, a shock, a fear, an anger that I haven't seen in my 20-something years of covering this city. Folk were frightened. They didn't know what was going to happen next. Cell phones immediately went out. And as you swing again, if we can, Jim, you can see the smoke still pluming from the Pentagon. It is a heart-wrenching scene to look at some of the national monuments and know what is happening just across the river. Throughout downtown, a number of people just gathered by cars, listening to radio stations, trying to determine just what was the latest. And as they heard that the World Bank Towers had collapsed, there was just shock and amazement. And then as the news just broke this morning, hearts broke as well, tears throughout downtown. And as we look down right now, Jim, you can pan to the left. There are two parked rider vehicles being inspected right now by bomb-sniffing dogs. So again, it was a matter of security as well as evacuation. Now, while people were thinking about getting out of town and getting home, scores of security vehicles were worried about what next, where possibly next, getting people away from areas that were potential targets in the minds of security personnel. So as the day moves on, we've really just begun downtown. This process of inspecting sites, inspecting vehicles, looking at people continues on and on. I think just about every 5 minutes, a convoy of some sort of police or Secret Service or Treasury Department police, FBI, it's hard to know, swirl up and down Connecticut Avenue. But once again, I was amazed at how easily, or it wasn't easy certainly, but how well the security people were able to maneuver themselves around downtown. But again, the state of shock in the city remains as folk basically lock down downtown D.C., hoping that it's over.
James, as we look at the pictures, it looks relatively quiet where you are. We should tell people who may be having trouble getting through to a loved one or somebody they're trying to reach by cell phone or by telephone, and they're not able to reach them. We should tell people there's a lot of traffic outside of the downtown area. There's a lot of gridlock, and people are having trouble communicating by telephone, and they're having trouble reaching their homes right now too, aren't they?
Yes, they are. One of the first things we noticed, particularly this morning, now the situation has eased now, is that cell phone lines became jammed immediately. People were walking around trying to get in touch with their loved ones, trying to find out if their children were okay. They weren't able to get to buildings. Again, many parents had children in daycare centers in and around some of the federal buildings. They couldn't get to their children. They couldn't use a cell phone to call. Families had awfully tough times uniting with loved ones. And again, parking lots were jammed. Restaurants were closing down. And while the federal government officially shut down, businesses just on their own this morning as the situation worsened just took it upon themselves to say, hey, you've got to get out of here. You've got to get downtown. And believe me, as people are walking downtown and we would hear in the distance military aircraft, heads would simply point to the sky, everyone looking and wondering, what was it? Is it going to be another plane crash? And at the same time, as you might imagine, in all the federal buildings downtown, the rumors were flying. Rumors that there had been some sort of incident at the State Department. There was not. Rumors that there was another renegade plane that was headed for Washington. At the time, it was not. So all of these things are circulating, all the talk going on, and people basically not knowing.
James, I want to interrupt you here. James, excuse me, I want to interrupt you here. We just got word that United Airlines is confirming that a second one of its planes has crashed. We don't know where. There was no word on where this plane crashed or from what airport it took off and where it was bound, but United Airlines says a second of its airliners has crashed somewhere. We'll have more information on that as the information becomes available. We're told that the plane was out of Chicago. What was it bound for? Do we know yet, Jimmy? We don't know where the plane was bound, but a second plane has crashed. United Airlines confirms. We'll tell you more about that as details become available to us. Jackie Benson is down at D.C. Police Headquarters with some information now. Jackie?
Jim, I've actually been walking the area between D.C. Police Headquarters and the FBI's Washington Field Office. And what we see down here right now is the FBI's Washington Field Office and D.C. Police Headquarters are ringed by a circle of police cars and yellow tape that says police line, do not cross. What we understand from D.C. Police Department at this point is that all of its officers have been called in on emergency notice. They will work 12-hour shifts until further notice. We are also being told that at this point, the city can answer only 911 calls, that they say at this point they are overwhelmed. They can only handle the 911 calls that are coming in. They ask that if anyone sees anything suspicious around the city, they call 911 immediately, but at this point they are not able to handle those emergency calls. Again, the D.C. Superior Court is shut down. D.C. Police Headquarters is shut down. The FBI's Washington Field Office is shut down. The U.S. Attorney's Complex at 555 4th Street is shut down. One Judiciary Square, where the mayor and council have been, no access. At this point, this entire area is shut down and empty. The area surrounding it, 14th and G, 14th and H, 13th Street, 12th Street, completely gridlocked. I had to walk about 10 blocks to get here. There is no driving in that area at this point, Jim.
All right, Jackie Benson, thank you. We appreciate it. We have some news.
Well, we've got word of police working overtime. Lots of other people will be working overtime because of all this as well. The D.C. National Guard is telling all members of the 372nd Military Police Battalion, including all subordinate companies, to report to the Armory as soon as possible. That's the D.C. National Guard, and that's the 372nd Military Police Battalion. Go to the Armory.
Once again, latest information from United Airlines. One of their planes, a second plane, has crashed, a plane out of Chicago. We do not know yet where that plane crashed. Susan Kidd is up in our newsroom now with some more information. Susan?
Well, Jim, one of the things we have not heard in all of this is the number of dead or injured. In New York, of course, that number is presumed to be considerable. We don't know about injuries at the Pentagon, but we do know that several area hospitals are receiving patients. I can tell you that in Nova Fairfax, they say they've called in all their surgical staff and their specialists, all hospital personnel, trauma teams standing by in ERS. Most of the patients on the site there from the Pentagon are said to be burn patients. This is at Nova Fairfax Hospital. And apparently a command center has been set up at the Pentagon, near the Pentagon, at a playground that is serving as a triage center. Arlington Hospital says there are about 22 patients there from the Pentagon. We have no idea what their condition is. Again, many of these patients are thought to be burn patients, but we confirmed some time ago that it was that flight out of Dulles to L.A. that crashed into the Pentagon, and of course there were passengers on board and crew members on board. Always in these kinds of disaster or any kind of disaster, there is a need for blood, and the American Red Cross is mobilizing. We are told that they expect a need for many blood donations and are encouraging people to call and donate. That telephone number is 1-800-GIVE-LIFE. If you can give blood, call 1-800-GIVE-LIFE. The American Red Cross, assuming that there will be a great need with a number of injuries at that Pentagon explosion. The Red Cross says it is shipping blood to the Washington Hospital Center, Georgetown University Hospital, George Washington University Hospital, and other hospitals in the region standing by just in case they are needed. Again, we have no numbers on deaths or casualties either from this Pentagon explosion, the plane crashing into the Pentagon, or from New York City. But apparently 22 patients are at Arlington Hospital, and Inova Fairfax is treating those injured as well. And of course, we'll stand by with the latest information and bring it to you as it's available. Jim, Doreen?
All right, Susan, thank you very much. We have Lieutenant Dan Nichols of the Capitol Police now, who's on the telephone with us. Mr. Nichols, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. The question is how you are doing. We understand that the government has pretty much been shut down. Can you give us the latest on the situation at the Capitol?
Approximately 2 hours ago, we ordered a mandatory evacuation of the Capitol and the House and Senate office buildings. All members and staff and the public who were in the buildings at the time were evacuated and sent home. We've taken measures to protect congressional leadership, and we have a protective coverage on them at this time.
When you say protective coverage, have they been taken someplace special, or are they just surrounded by guard? Can you tell us more about that, sir?
We have contingency plans in order to provide exceptional protection for leadership as part of our continuity of government efforts.
There were no reports of any terrorist attacks at the Capitol this morning. Tell me, if you would, about what procedures are underway now to ensure that nothing does happen there.
Well, right now, we have contingency plans in place for events like this. We've enacted them before during the World Trade Center bombing that occurred a few years ago and after the Oklahoma City bombing. Right now, we've done a security sweep, and we've locked the buildings down. We'll remain in a heightened security posture for the foreseeable future.
All right, Lieutenant, do you know for how long the Capitol will be shut down and remain evacuated?
That decision is going to be made later this afternoon. We hope to have a word from the leadership on how we're going to proceed tomorrow. But for this afternoon and into tonight, the Capitol will remain closed, and we will have extraordinary security measures around the buildings.
Okay. And just to confirm, there has been no problem, no explosion, no anything anywhere near the Capitol?
No, and I need to reassure everyone that this is merely a precaution. We take these types of measures in light of terrorist attacks against American interests. Clearly, this is the most severe terrorist attack we've had, and we decided to take these measures as a reasonable and prudent precaution. But the legislative branch still continues to function. Members of Congress are safe, and the buildings are secure.
All right. Lieutenant Dan Nichols with the Capitol Police, we thank you very much for that information.
We're getting some new information on the planes now. United Airlines says one of its planes is the one that went down near Pittsburgh this morning. The airline says another of its planes has crashed, but it has not said where. As far as we know, we are dealing with 4 separate plane crashes this morning. Let's try to recap what we know.
Before we do that, we ought to go to Lieutenant Colonel Phyllis Barnes. She's with the D.C. National Guard. We're told that there's been some activation there. Lieutenant Colonel, can you tell us about that?
Hello?
Hi. Lieutenant Colonel Barnes?
Yes, hi.
Thank you very much. We understand that there's been some measure of activation with the D.C. National Guard. Can you tell us more about that, please?
Yes, we're asking that all members of the 372nd Military Police Battalion report to the Armory, and that includes the subordinate companies of the 372nd.
How many members is that, Lieutenant Colonel?
Well, I can't give you that figure at this time.
All right. We understand that your husband works at the Pentagon. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Have you heard from him?
Yes, I did. He stood in line for quite a while and finally got to a phone and called me, and he actually is here at the Armory now, and it took him quite a while to get here because of Metro and different things shutting down.
Did he say what he experienced at the Pentagon?
He was one corridor away from where the crash occurred, and thankfully he was not hurt and was evacuated right away. So.
Is he there near you now, Lieutenant Colonel?
No, I'm afraid he's not.
Okay.
He's in another office.
Okay, we'd like to talk to him, so could you have him call us back when it's convenient? We'd love to hear from him. All right?
See.
All right, now, once again, tell us again the activation that you're calling up from the National Guard.
It is the members of the 372nd Military Police Battalion and the subordinate companies. We're asking that they report to the Armory as soon as they're able.
Okay, thank you very much. Lieutenant Colonel Phyllis Barnes with
Thank
the D.C.
you.
National Guard. Doreen?
We're ready now with another live report from Tony Dorsey. He is in Northern Virginia. I believe he's near National Airport. Tony?
Yeah, I'm right near National Airport, and I have a spokesperson from National Airport, from the Airports Authority, Jonathan Gaffney, to tell us exactly what's going on here. I know a lot of people were evacuated, everyone obviously evacuated who was non-essential in terms of personnel at the airport. How long is this airport going to be shut down?
So we decided at a minimum it'll be close to 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. It'll give us 24 hours to kind of assess the situation. Obviously, the national air system has been shut down as well, so we'll just kind of follow that lead. Everyone's been evacuated. What's very important to tell people is that we have a lot of international arrivals that come to Dulles later on in the afternoon. They may very well have taken off by this morning. We don't know where those planes are going. I heard in the news they may be going to Canada. So if you're expecting somebody, not just domestically but internationally, very, very patient tonight and probably even into tomorrow and the next day, because it's kind of a national shutdown of the aviation system for good reason, but it's going to create a lot of confusion. People are really going to have to be patient trying to get through to find out where their loved ones are.
My wife is one of them. She's a flight attendant coming from Europe. So you're saying if she's coming in and others are coming in from Europe, you're expecting flights in? What are you saying?
We certainly don't expect them here.
No,
we don't expect them out to airports.
Yeah.
They could end up, again, I heard this morning, possibly be in Canada, and we'll just have to assess the situation and kind of go from there.
Okay. Now, what about the people here? How many people were evacuated? I know how many people work at the airport, first of all?
Probably in the thousands, I'm sure. A lot of the planes that had pushed back from the gate, as people know, taxiing out to take off, those were all called back immediately. They were all unloaded, so thousands of people there. I'm sure that 1,000 employees or more. Everyone was evacuated off the airport here and at Dulles as well, just as a precaution.
And we saw the people coming out with their baggage. We saw people literally running, some of them, away from the airport. They were told to get out of here.
Exactly.
You've also brought in emergency equipment. Tell us why.
We did, just as all as a precaution. It was only a few hours ago, but when you saw some of those images that we saw and everybody saw, the first response that we had was to get everyone to safety, get everyone out of the building, if nothing more, as a precaution. And frankly, it was obviously the right thing to do.
How many flights leave Reagan National and Dulles International every day?
Oh, a total number of flights per day, probably about 1,500 flights, operations a day. Those are all obviously have all stopped now. Tough to identify exactly what we missed this morning, but the whole day now obviously has been stopped, and very well into tomorrow, I'm sure. I wouldn't be surprised if obviously we're not open till 11 until it goes in tomorrow afternoon, until they can really assess what has happened.
Tell us about the flight that left Dulles International Airport. We're not certain at this point of anything. Everything slowly coming in. What do you know about the flight that may have left Dulles this morning and hit the Pentagon?
Probably the same thing that you know. It was an American Airlines flight from Dulles to LAX. Again, different versions of what size the plane was, landed, crashed into the Pentagon. Like you, that's all we know.
You know nothing about when it took off, how it took off, and why, and how?
Nothing at all, Tony. Obviously, there's an enormous need for information, and it's going to take a long time to kind of get all these things figured out.
What about airport security? What are we doing about that?
Well, obviously, we evacuated the building. We called every essential employee, including all of our public safety folks. I know we sent some folks over to the Pentagon to help over there. We're here to do whatever we need to do.
Okay, and the airport at least shut down
till 11, National and Dulles, till at least tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
And just stay tuned for possible further
we'll
details.
This evening.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
We have a situation obviously still unfolding, but as you just heard from Mr. Gaffney, who is the Airports Authority spokesman, the airport here at Reagan National and Dulles International shut down at least until 11 o'clock tomorrow. Everybody watching the skies here right now, trying to figure out what will happen next. Back to you in the studio.
Tony Dorsey, thanks.
Some more information, what we do know about those flights, since Tony was talking about those. United Flight 93 A Boeing 757 left Newark at 8:01 this morning, headed for San Francisco with 38 passengers, 2 pilots and 5 flight attendants. That is the flight that crashed near Pittsburgh, according to the airline. The second plane, United 175, a Boeing 767. It left Boston at 7:58 this morning, headed for Los Angeles. That aircraft carried 56 passengers, 2 pilots and 7 flight attendants, according to the airline, and the airline would not say where that plane crashed.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Again,
the picture you're seeing there is, as it happened this morning, the second plane when it crashed into the World Trade Center, into the second tower. Alan Netter is with the D.C. Police Department. He's on our line now. Alan?
Hi, Jim.
Can you, with the fire department, can you tell us the status now of the fire at the Pentagon and what else the fire department is involved with?
Well, Jim, we are actually assisting Arlington County in dealing with what is a significant fire, apparently due to a plane crash near the Pentagon. We have sent 2 alarms to assist them. That's about 50 pieces of equipment, about 60 firefighters over there trying to bring that under control.
Alan,
I don't know the status of it yet. I don't have any accounting of injuries or anything like that, but we are assisting Arlington County.
Can you give us a sense of the magnitude of the fire and how long it's expected to take to put it out?
I really have no idea, Doreen, because this is an event which is controlled by Arlington County. We are assisting them. We, of course, are monitoring it. It is a significant fire. I don't know exactly, because I haven't been over there, I don't know all the particulars of it, but it's a significant fire. We are helping Arlington County to bring that under control. No word yet on injuries, but we are standing by with fire apparatus. We are there with EMS apparatus, ready to assist as we can.
Do you know Arlington has called on D.C. Fire Department for help? What about, do you know how many other fire departments have been asked to are over there working on this fire right now?
Well, as these things unfold, we see a lot of shifting of apparatus. We're getting significant help as well from our neighbors, from Prince George's and Montgomery counties and Greenbelt, some of the volunteer fire companies in Maryland. They are bringing apparatus into the district so we can take our outlying apparatus and move them downtown as it's needed.
And Alan, what about in the city? We've had various reports this morning of explosions at different places that did not turn out to be true. Are you guys running on those things? What kinds of things are you dealing with right now?
Well, certainly we've got a lot of calls into our 911 center. Chief Few has increased staffing there in anticipation of a higher than normal volume of calls. We are fortifying all quadrants of the city. We are covered. Every street is covered, both from the fire side and the EMS side. Our communications system has been working well. Like I said, we have extra personnel on hand over there. We do have a command center set up in the district. We do have a brain which is running the whole situation, and everything has worked out so far. Now, there have been several reports, and I emphasize reports of various explosions here and there. Those have been, so far, unfounded. The big issues from a substantial fire standpoint has been in Virginia, which is where we've dedicated resources, moved some of our resources down to the inner city, brought in some apparatus from the surrounding jurisdictions to fortify our neighborhoods so our service can continue there as normal.
Okay, Alan Netter with the D.C. Fire Department. We appreciate it, Alan. There are a couple of new pieces of information we want to pass along to you. Reuters news service reports that the U.S., Canada, and the United States and Mexican borders have been closed. Also, we are told by the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority that National Airport will remain closed until 11 o'clock tomorrow morning at the earliest. National closed until 11 o'clock tomorrow at the earliest.
And we are also just being told that the U.S. Major League Baseball schedule is canceled for today.
Okay. Susan Kidd is up in our newsroom now with some more information. Sue?
Jim, we're getting more information about injuries. We're told that Arlington Hospital is treating about 26 patients right now, all from that Pentagon crash. There are varying degrees of severity to their injuries. We're also told there are 20 people at the Washington Hospital Center Burn Center. We're hearing most of the injuries are burn injuries. Some people are being treated at Alexandria Hospital. Apparently 4 of them walked in, so they are not seriously injured. And Georgetown has received one of the injured. We're told that some of the overflow might go to Georgetown Hospital. Also, we mentioned the American Red Cross is asking for blood donors, and Innova Blood Donor Services from Annandale is also asking for donors. Innova apparently supplies blood to 11 hospitals in the Washington area. That telephone number, you're looking at the Red Cross number, 1-800-GIVE-LIFE. But the Innova Blood Donor Services number is 866-256-6372. Let me give it to you again, 866-256-6372. 6372. That's the number for Innova Blood Donor Services, which supplies blood to 11 hospitals in the Washington area. It is on Woodburn Road. We're told right now that it is filled to capacity with people who are donating blood, but they want people to continue to come and continue to call because we have no idea at this point what the need for donor blood might be. But the American Red Cross and Innova Blood Donor Services gearing up for what may be a tremendous need. Again, most of the injured are at Arlington Hospital. Arlington says it's treating 26 patients right now. We'll keep you posted on what is happening in hospitals around the area. Jim, Doreen.
Okay, Susan Kidd, we appreciate that very much. You know, the Montgomery County unit is also involved in tragedies and other incidents as they occur in the Washington metropolitan area. This certainly qualifies as a tragedy. Pete Perringer with the Montgomery County Fire Department is on the line now. Pete, what are your units involved with at this point?
Jim, I'm here with County Executive Doug Duncan at the Emergency Operations Center in Rockville. But right now, a number of our units are assisting the district. We sent some medical units to Arlington earlier. But since then, our Urban Search and Rescue Team, which is a FEMA team, has been activated, and they will be reporting to the Pentagon. And also the National Medical Response Team, of which we have quite a few personnel assigned to, will be also reporting to Arlington, Virginia.
Pete, can you tell us whether or not your emergency rescue team might also be going to New York? Any plans on that at this point?
Jim, what I understand at this point, of course, we're part of a national network. There are 4 teams that are going to be deployed to New York, and 3 teams are coming to Northern Virginia. The Montgomery County contingent will be reporting to Northern Virginia.
And this is the same group that we have reported on. They went to Oklahoma City. They've been to several earthquake scenes. Am I correct?
That's correct. This is part of a national urban search and rescue response team that can be sent anywhere in the country.
All right, Pete Perringer with the Montgomery County Fire Department. We thank you and appreciate that very much. We have some information here. The Arlington police have shut down Route 50 heading into Washington and George Mason Drive. They have also blocked the inbound Columbia Pike at Glebe Road. Get that again. Arlington police have shut down Route 50 heading into Washington at George Mason Drive. They have also blocked the inbound Columbia Pike at Glebe Road. You might want to know that as you plan your travel today. And might we add that travel today probably ought to be restricted. There's an awful lot going on, and the roads, as you might imagine, because of the early release of federal employees, is in fact a mess.
They're gridlocked. Mayor Williams is planning to hold a news conference at 1 o'clock this afternoon, so we will let you know what happens with that. And this first information out of New York, a high-ranking city police official says the number of people killed or injured there could wind up being in the thousands. Again, we have no numbers on casualties, not in New York, not here, none of this just yet. We want to turn now to a guest who is joining us in the studio. It's Paul Bremer. I want to make sure I'm getting your name right because I'm just meeting you just at this moment. You're a terrorism expert.
Counterterrorism, I hope.
And can talk to us a little bit about who could, I mean, there are a limited number of groups who could be responsible for something of this magnitude.
Yes, this is a very well planned, very well coordinated attack, which suggests it's very well organized centrally, and there are only 3 or 4 candidates in the world, really, who could have conducted this attack.
Bin Laden comes to mind right away, Mr. Bremer.
Indeed, he certainly does. Bin Laden was involved in the first attack on the World Trade Center, which had as its intention doing exactly what happened here, which was to collapse both towers. He certainly has to be a prime suspect, but there are others in the Middle East, and there are at least 2 states, Iran and Iraq, which should at least remain on the list of potential suspects.
What kind of coordination would, I mean, how could something like this be put together?
Well, you'd have to have first of all, you've got to find some people who are willing to die, which is not that easy. And then, of course, they have to find ways around what we thought was pretty good security at our airports. We haven't had a hijacking in a long time, let alone 4. So there had to have been some very good coordination there. There has to have been coordination in the whole planning of the attack. The people, if they were not Americans, had to get visas to get into the United States. They needed false identities probably to buy airplane tickets. They needed cars to get to the airport. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that had to happen here.
Go ahead.
Well, with as many resources as our government and our allies' governments around the world devote to studying terrorism and knowing what's going on and what they're planning, you have to wonder how something of this magnitude, how this could take place without any warning or any hint that it was coming.
First of all, the intelligence against terrorists is the hardest intelligence there is to gather. Basically, you have to have a spy in the terrorist group who's willing to talk to you for whatever reason. It's the hardest intelligence there is. The National Commission on Terrorism, which I chaired last year, made as our key recommendation a much more vigorous effort to try to get terrorist spies as informing on their colleagues to us. Every time there's a major terrorist attack, it is automatically, of course, an intelligence failure. That's by definition. But I'm sympathetic to the problem about how you get good intelligence on these people. It's not easy. There is an intelligence failure here. There is a massive security failure where we have 4 airplanes being hijacked in the same morning, 2 from Dulles Airport, it appears. So there's a lot of lessons that are going to have to be learned. But first, we've got to find out who did it.
Mr. Berman, I want to speak to that for a second. When the Oklahoma City incident occurred, the immediate response from a lot of people was that it came from some Arab terrorist group. Is there any reason why we ought to be cautious about that kind of an assumption on this particular incident, on these incidents?
Well, of course. What you have to work with at this stage, since we don't have any hard intelligence apparently and we don't have any forensic evidence, is motivations and capabilities. And so when I list 4 potential groups, I'm working mostly from motivations and proven capabilities in the past. Doesn't mean that you can exclude that some other kind of group could have come out of nowhere and done this, but at least as a working hypothesis in the first chaotic hours here after this attack, you have to start somewhere, and you have to start with what you know about the past and which groups have motives.
One of the things that the President said today from Florida early on was that the United States will respond to this, and he left it at that. Is it to be assumed that the first thing that we have to figure out is to identify precisely who it is we're going to respond against?
Of course. Basically, we have sort of a 4-stage operation here. First, we've got to hope and help that we can save as many people as possible, stabilize the situation in the Pentagon and in New York. Secondly, we need to get to work on trying to identify the perpetrators. And then thirdly, we come to the question about retaliation. And fourthly, which goes along all along at the same time, is what are the lessons we learned? What did we learn about the intelligence failure? What did we learn about the security failure? And how do we move forward in the future on those areas?
I don't recall anything like this. Pearl Harbor happened a month before I was born, and I hear my parents talk about that as a seminal event in their lives all the time. I am not aware of anything like this in the United States before. Americans are now, I think it's fair to say, really scared. Should we be?
This is a day that will change our lives, isn't it?
It is a day that will change our lives. It's a day when the war that the terrorists declared on the United States, and after all, they did declare war on us, has been brought home to the United States in a much more dramatic way than we've seen before. So it will change our lives. I do think it's important, and I'm sure the President and his colleagues, when they start talking about this, it's important to hit some balance. The American way of life is not threatened by these people unless we threaten it ourselves. If we start throwing away the democratic freedoms and the civil liberties that are at the heart of our society, that's what they're after, and that's what we can't allow to have happen. And we've got to go about our business. People have got to move around. I was diverted on a plane this morning. I was trying to get to New York and wound up in Baltimore, and I in a way, was sort of at least relieved to see business as usual going on among people. We have to go on with our lives. It's not to say we don't take it seriously. We take it very seriously, but it's not something where we can all jump in a foxhole somewhere and hope the world doesn't come and bother us. We have to find a balanced response, one that makes it absolutely clear, as the President said this morning, that we're not going to tolerate this act of war. This will have consequences for the people who did it. I hope, very severe consequences. I hope the most severe military response we can come up with. But we also have to remember that we've got a way of life to protect, and that this doesn't threaten, this is not an existential threat to the United States.
All right. Paul Bremer, thank you.
We appreciate it, Mr. Bremer. Thank you very much.
We should make it clear that there has been no claim of responsibility at this point for any of these events.
Not yet. Susan Kidd upstairs in our newsroom with some word on casualties. Sue?
Well, Jim, you know, after seeing that gaping hole in the Pentagon and the smoke and fire billowing up, we could make the horrible assumption that there were deaths, certainly injuries, and now a Navy public affairs spokesperson has confirmed that there are dead at the Pentagon. We have no numbers, we have no details, but a Navy public affairs spokesperson confirming there are dead at the Pentagon. The American Airlines flight that crashed into the Pentagon was out of Dulles Airport, a Dulles to Los Angeles flight. There were 58 passengers aboard that flight, 4 flight attendants and 2 pilots. The 64 people on board that flight from Dulles assumed dead. We don't know, again, how many inside the Pentagon might have been injured or killed. American also tells us that its Boston to LAX flight, the one that hit the World Trade Center, had 81 passengers on board, 9 attendants and 2 pilots, 92 dead. So while out of New York they are saying they are expecting thousands and thousands dead, we do know that 156 American Airlines passengers and crew members are dead. And again, a Navy spokesperson confirming that there are dead at the Pentagon. Jim.
All right, Susan Kidd, thank you very much, Susan. We should point out here that with all the airplanes that have been crashed into American icons and or government buildings.
Four that we know of.
In fact, there are, according to the FAA, 50 airplanes still in the air, 50 domestic airliners that are still in the air. The FAA has their eye on them, and we are told all is well and that they all will land. We are also told that there are 22 international flights that are still in the air. Earlier, we had been told that all the international flights were going to be diverted to Canada. And as far as we know, that is still the case, but they are not being brought into domestic airports. But anyway, 50 domestic airliners still up there. We're told all is well. 22 international planes in the air. We are told that is all under control at the same time.
Because of the communication problems that people are having, let's bring you up to speed on a few things here. Arlington County officials say that all deputy sheriffs and fire department personnel should report to their stations, and those on standby should call in to see if they're needed. That's Arlington County deputy sheriffs and fire department personnel report to work. We also understand that Montgomery County has now decided to close all of its offices, and those people are going to be headed home. The administrative office of the U.S. courts and the Supreme Court have closed now. And I understand we have live on the telephone with us a spokesperson from the U.S. Park Police, Sergeant Rob McClain. Are you there, Sergeant?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Can you tell us what's happening with the Park Police right now?
Yes, actually, as you well know, we have closed all monuments and memorials in the downtown area. They were closed and evacuated earlier. This was a precautionary measure, and there were no specific threats directly to any of these monuments or memorials. The U.S. Park Police Eagle responded to the Pentagon after the plane crashed into it and did several medevacs of injured persons from the Pentagon.
How does the Park Police secure our national monuments in an unprecedented case like this?
Obviously, numerous people come to visit our monuments and memorials on a daily basis, so it was a large task of evacuating these areas. We've deployed all our resources and have actually called in our officers and are instituting 12-hour shifts to assist us. All
right. Sergeant Rob McClain, how long? What are you expecting in the hours ahead?
Absolutely, our officers will be working very hard in cooperation with all the surrounding jurisdictions. We do have a large task on our hands. We do have a lot of road closures still. The southbound George Washington Memorial Parkway has been closed at the Beltway, and all of our normal PM rush hour traffic changes to include the Rock Creek Parkway and Clara Barton are in effect as well.
Why are those roads closed, Sergeant?
With the mass exodus of people leaving the federal buildings that were closed in D.C. and people leaving the area to get home to the residences, we make this easier by instituting our PM rush hour traffic changes and not allowing traffic into the city on those major arteries.
All right. U.S. Park Police Sergeant Rob McLean, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
We have some new information here. Mayor Tony Williams is expected to have a news conference at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Also, President Bush is expected to also speak, I presume, address the nation from Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. I'm not sure when that is supposed to be, but at some point in the next couple of hours, we expect to hear from the president. Here is why we are here today. Shortly before 9 o'clock this morning, an airliner that had been hijacked crashed into one of the towers at the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. Just after 9 o'clock this morning, a second plane crashed into the second tower of the World Trade Center. And then, shortly after that, an aircraft crashed near the Pentagon, just outside of Washington here. At a short time immediately following those three airline crashes, the Federal Aviation Administration shut down all air travel in the United States throughout the country. Shortly after 10 o'clock this morning, the World Trade Center, one of the towers of the World Trade Center, collapsed about an hour after it was hit by that airplane. Financial markets were suspended when all of this happened. And then, just before 10:30 this morning, the second tower of the World Trade Center also collapsed. And there you can see it happening now, crashing down into the streets of Lower Manhattan. As you might suspect, there are many, many casualties. There is word from a police official in New York City who said that he expects the casualties to be in the thousands, in a matter of fact. Here in Washington, the White House was evacuated. All of the government offices were shut down. The State Department evacuated and everything else. In effect,
the Capitol, the Supreme Court?
Yes, all of them. The government, in effect, was shut down. The financial markets were shut down. And there are casualties all over the place, and American people are quite naturally and properly terrified about what's happening here today, because these kinds of things aren't supposed to happen in the United States of America, especially not in New York City and in Washington, D.C. And
we want to share with you what we do know. We're getting scattered information coming in about the planes that have crashed and which planes have crashed where. Here's the latest that we have. American Airlines identified the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center as Flight 11, a Los Angeles-bound jet hijacked after takeoff from Boston, 92 people aboard. That's one of the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center. And also the other plane that crashed into the World Trade Center, American Airlines Flight 77, it was hijacked while carrying 64 people from Washington Dulles Airport to Los Angeles. And United Airlines says that its Flight 93, a Boeing 757 on the way from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco, crashed about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh with 45 people on board. And United Airlines says another of its planes, Flight 175, that was a Boeing 767 bound from Boston to Los Angeles with 65 people on board, also crashed, but United does not say where that plane crashed. So that is four planes that we are talking about.
It is the plane out of Dulles that is the one that crashed into the Pentagon, as a matter of fact, this morning. We have on the phone with us now the county executive of Montgomery County, Douglas Duncan. Mr. Duncan, this has been some kind of horrible day.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Jim Dreen, it's a horrible, horrible day for America, for this region in particular. And my heart and sympathies and prayers go out to all the families involved who've lost loved ones today.
You've had no call, have you, Mr. Duncan, to interrupt any of the county government activities today, have you?
We have done some things. We have pulled people out of the main heart of Rockville and the taller county buildings there and sent them home. The courts have closed. We've heightened we've put our police department in heightened alert. We've actually dispatched some of our fire and rescue personnel to Arlington, to the district, and our collapse rescue team, our search and rescue team, is going to the Pentagon as well. So we are doing some things within the county to make sure that we're prepared. We want to assist the region in terms of response, and we want to make sure that we do everything we can to keep people calm and here in Montgomery County.
All right. Montgomery County Executive Doug Duncan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm sorry for such a horrible occasion.
So are we, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go now to Megan McGrath. She has been live outside the Pentagon throughout the morning, and she's ready with an update for us. The fire is still burning there, Megan?
Yeah, actually it is. If you look, it's traveling. It began in the section where you can actually see quite plainly where the impact was. It's the section that collapsed. That was where the initial fire was, and a tremendous amount of smoke. The section collapsed, and then the fire began to spread off to the left of the place of impact. You can see maybe just above one of the signs from the highway, there are some flames coming out of one of the upper floor windows, and basically it's been slowly traveling through the various floors of the Pentagon off to the left-hand side of the building. You can hear perhaps in the background we have a tremendous amount of helicopter activity. These are U.S. Army helicopters. They've been in and out of here all morning long, and actually they seem to have stepped up a little bit now. Off in the distance, perhaps you can see sort of the staging area. There are a number of emergency vehicles down there. They also have some white tents. It appears that they are setting up some sort of a triage area. We don't have any information about how many people were injured, how many people lost their lives in this, but just looking at the damage to the building, it has to be just tremendous. And so they are staging down there in that area, and they are trying to get people the medical attention that they need as quickly as possible. You can see in the area that has collapsed, they are still hosing it down with some water. They kind of have been doing that off and on. There are periods where they stop and just sort of let it smolder, and then when the hot spots pop up, they hit it with the water again, and you can see the tremendous smoke trail that is being left behind. Of course, everybody was immediately evacuated out of the Pentagon as soon as this happened. A number of eyewitnesses told us that they saw a plane smash into the side of the Pentagon, that is what caused this fire. They were immediately told to get out of the area. There was a tremendous amount of confusion. People simply didn't know what was going on, but they were told just to get out and that they'd figure it all out later, but the important thing was to get out immediately from the area. And you can see there are a lot of people milling around here, really not knowing where to go because all of the roads in this area are completely clogged. You simply can't go anywhere. A lot of people are very frustrated and concerned because they're trying to get in touch with loved ones, and if you try to make a cellular phone call from this area, it is just tremendously difficult. I had to try 20 times just to get through once. All of the lines are jammed, so as soon as you place that call, you get the busy signal to try again. So a lot of frustration as people, you would imagine, that have loved ones who work in the Pentagon, very, very anxious at this point. Many of them haven't been able to contact their loved ones, and that's not necessarily because they're injured, although we do have injuries in this building, but it's also very hard. You can't get to the area. You can't get to the area at all, and you can't get through on the cellular phones. Now, out and about was my colleague Julie Carey. She has actually been able to go to some different areas and has seen some things from some different vantage points. Julie, what have you seen?
Well, a short while ago, I was able to walk up an empty 395. That's a higher vantage point, and you kind of can oversee the entire area. Already, even as they keep putting water on that fire and start to treat some of the victims, FBI evidence technicians were fanning out across the Pentagon grounds, starting to mark evidence spots. I was very close to the Pentagon earlier on before both Pentagon employees and some of the reporters were moved out, but you could see pieces that had flown hundreds of yards away from the Pentagon. There was debris really everywhere, so they have their work cut out for them there.
We've been from our vantage point, it's difficult to see some of the medical transports. Have you seen any of the injured taken out and taken to the hospital?
Initially, there was very little going on in that regard. There was one transport by helicopter, one victim that we could see taken out. Where that person came from, we don't know. Another person being treated on the grass there. They set up really an outdoor triage area near the heliport, and they were working on someone there. From talking to some of the witnesses inside the building, those Pentagon employees who were unhurt, though many of them shocked naturally, they were taken into the courtyard and kept there for some time. And as we've both seen, just in the last 45 minutes to an hour, have they been evacuated from that area. So probably a long, anxious wait in there. I certainly get the sense now, as I look from up above, as more ambulances came into the area, that they're starting now to probe a little deeper for people that may be more seriously injured.
Okay, Julie Carey, thanks so much for joining us here. And you can see that there are still people along the ridge. There are members of the media and also folks who work in the Pentagon and work in the nearby buildings. And basically everyone in this general area has been told to leave, to evacuate the area and to keep a safe distance away. And so we are seeing people making their way. There still, of course, is the emergency staging area down there at the Pentagon. We are seeing a lot of helicopter traffic in and out, but really people are walking around in a state of shock, just absolutely flabbergasted, shocked, and upset that something like this could happen. There are people who look at the building, they know people who work in that section that was damaged, and they are fearful for the lives and the well-being of their friends and their co-workers. And we've encountered a number of people who simply were too upset to go on camera. They didn't want to talk to us. They said that they're too shaken up, they're too shocked to go on camera. But you could just see the concern and the worry on their faces, and just tremendously scary for the people who are inside that building, let alone for the people who perhaps may still be inside that building. Rescue crews are trying their best to knock out what remains of this fire, and certainly they're very, very anxious to get inside that building to make sure that anyone who is alive in there who may be trapped, that they can get those people out and get them to the hospital as quickly as possible. But just looking at the building, you can see that it is structurally compromised. An entire section has collapsed, and so that poses a tremendous danger to the emergency crews on the ground who are trying to get in there. So that is another very difficult scenario that they are working with here. And we are still seeing a spread of the fire. It is traveling to the left on the upper floors. Now, it's not as ferocious, of course, as it was when it first occurred. When we first saw, and we were driving by and we're in the area, it was just a tremendous fireball that just went straight up into the sky, and you could feel there was sort of a disturbance in the air, and you could feel a slight shake. And a lot of people who've been walking around here today are describing that same thing. A woman who was inside the building, she worked more to the left-hand side in the screen. Her office was to the left. She said it felt like a tornado, or that something was trying to lift the roof off the building. So tremendously scary for everybody involved, and very, very frightening, I know, for people who are watching this and they have loved ones who work in that building. But we were being told by Pentagon officials, please do not come to the area. You're not going to be allowed here. The best way to get information about your loved ones is to hold tight and just monitor the news. They'll try and get information out as quickly as you can, but you will not be allowed to the area. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Megan McGrath reporting live from outside the Pentagon. That is a disturbing, shocking scene. The Pentagon, really one of the most important symbols of American strength, and today it is a symbol. It is a clear picture of just how vulnerable we are. We do want to share with you, as a Pentagon spokesperson has said, that the leadership of the Defense Department is okay. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld is okay right now, so no injuries to the leadership, at least at the Pentagon. We also want to clear up the fact, or try to. This has been a terrible day of one horrible event happening one right after the other, and sometimes things get a little bit confused. One of our NBC correspondents had reported to us earlier that American Flight 77 out of Dulles Airport bound for Los Angeles was the one that crashed very near the Pentagon and created that hellacious scene that you see on your screen right now. The Associated Press is reporting that American Flight 77 out of Dulles is one of the two planes that crashed into one of the towers at the World Trade Center that you are watching now.
That's from a tape from earlier. But anyway, so there is some discrepancy in terms of what plane hit what. But we are trying as hard as we possibly can to get the best information that is available to us, and as we do, we will report it to you.
There is no news agency in the world with experience in covering an event like this, and there's bound to be some confusion on a day like this.
And also on a day like this in Washington, D.C., there is horrible traffic situation. Let's get an update on that.
Jim and Doreen, hi again. Good afternoon, everyone. We're still looking at major problems. You're looking at live pictures of northbound 95 in Springfield. The problem is that authorities have closed 395 northbound from the Beltway all the way to the 14th Street Bridge. So these folks are northbound 95, and they have to make a decision, either go to the outer loop or go the inner loop up toward Tyson's. The bulk of them are taking the outer loop. Let's switch cameras here. We'll show you the outer loop of the Beltway. That's the right side of your screen. Delays basically begin back in Springfield across the Wilson Bridge. There are no accidents or broken down cars. We're just dealing with an afternoon rush hour in the heart of the middle of the day as everyone leaves. Elsewhere, we'll switch gears here and show you the inner loop of the Beltway in Montgomery County. It is crawling from Connecticut Avenue east. Again, no problems. It is all just volume. Canal Road, one-way outbound, as mentioned earlier. Eastbound Columbia Pike is blocked off at Glebe Road. No inbound traffic into the city. Authorities are trying to get everyone who's still downtown outbound. We'll keep you updated throughout the afternoon. We'll be here. Jim Doreen, back to you.
All right, Jerry, thank you very much.
Let's check out the scene now in the heart of downtown Washington. Pat Collins is live at Connecticut and K. Pat?
Doreen, it appears the rush to get out of downtown has eased up considerably. First, let's take a look at Connecticut Avenue. You can see only a few cars on Connecticut Avenue in the north and south direction. Take a look now down K Street. You can see some gaps in traffic on K Street westbound. Directing traffic here in Connecticut, and we have 200.
All right, Pat Collins reporting to us from down at Connecticut
and K.
This has been a horrible day in Washington, in New York City, and indeed in our nation. Unprecedented events happening here. We had a terrorism expert in here earlier who shared with us the fact that the United States is not clear yet on exactly who is responsible for all of these terrorist events today. No one has claimed responsibility as of yet. 2 airplanes crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. Another airplane crashed very near the Pentagon and created incredible destruction there. Another airplane crashed near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania today. All of those airliners had been hijacked. One of the things that we are incredibly concerned about now, of course, all over this country is how could that have happened? With all of the security in place at our airports, how could this have happened? Of course, these events were all very, very well coordinated. These are not things that just somebody thought up last night and decided to pull off today. A great deal of coordination involved. You can be sure that American security agencies are working very, very hard right now to find out exactly what happened and who is responsible for it. The president said earlier this morning when he was informed of what had happened, he was at a school in Florida. The president made it clear that the United States will respond to this. We expect to hear more from the president at some point in the next couple of hours.
Some of the things that are happening right now, airports all over the nation are closed. Our borders with Canada and Mexico are closed. Our capital has been evacuated, as have all the federal government buildings. This is an unprecedented event, what we're watching today. This is a day that will change all of our lives forever, I suspect.
Probably so. We should also point out that all the museums in Washington, certainly the Smithsonian and the others, have been closed as well. And we expect to hear more about all of the national monuments, as a matter of fact, around the country.
Lots of people have questions about the airlines that have gone down, and we have a telephone number for American Airlines that I think we can put up on the screen that it's the telephone number for American Airlines that people can call if they have questions about people who are on an American Airlines flight today. This is a hotline number for family members only. We believe that one of the planes that crashed was a flight out of Dulles. There is the hotline number, 800-245-0999. We expect to be on the air bringing you the very latest information that we have throughout this day and all night long. So we expect to keep you posted on what's happening.
The President, the remarks that the President is intending to make this afternoon are being released at this point, and we can tell you that the President will say to the nation today that freedom itself was attacked today, and it was attacked by a faceless coward, to use the President's words. And the President went on to say that freedom will be defended. The Pentagon is on fire. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York, an icon of the capitalist world, have crumbled after being crashed into by airplanes. The United States was hit hard today, and the President of the United States is promising that these attacks will be answered at some time in the near future. We are going to rejoin the network now.